Despite all of the chaos, the ups and downs, the crazy wins, and the humiliating losses, Kentucky still has a chance down the stretch to find a way to win the SEC.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to be explaining how exactly Kentucky, despite everything, can still win the SEC. Also on today's episode, we're going to talk about how Kentucky's not necessarily entering a trap game later tonight against Oklahoma, because we know what type of opponent Oklahoma is, and we know what Kentucky does to teams like the Sooners. And then to wrap up the show, we're going to talk about Tyran Stokes here, not necessarily out of the picture yet for Kentucky, and it's actually really interesting how this recruitment has unfolded. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail, wins define the moment, putting in that work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the country. If you would subscribe, would love it if you did so, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcast. Okay, despite everything, despite all of the ups and downs, the chaos, the wins, the losses that were just humiliating to Kentucky, the injuries, the frustrations for Mark Pope, somehow, some way, Kentucky is still sitting in position to possibly win the SEC at the end of the season. Now, let me be very clear here. Does this mean Kentucky's going to win the SEC? Am I saying that? No. I'm not telling you that that is definitively going to happen. Who knows? They could win out. They could lose out. This team has been so unpredictable up until this point that we can't truly predict how the rest of the season is going to go. But the best we can do is kind of speculate with the help of some computer models and honestly just eye test at this point with some of these opponents that are coming up. So Kentucky right now, as of this moment, is 15-7, 6-3 in the SEC. They'll be playing Oklahoma later tonight. I meant to get this conversation to you guys yesterday, but unfortunately, due to some recording issues and then also some site issues, as you can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, was not able to get that done. But we're talking about it now as we go into the Oklahoma game later tonight. 15-7, 6-3 in the SEC. You have Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Florida, Texas A&M. I think you could also throw Alabama in there as well, as far as other teams that are going to be competing possibly for the SEC title. This is a very tight race, or it projects to be a very tight race by the end of the year. And I know that Auburn and Florida last year were extremely dominant, and this year it feels like the Gators are going to be really, really good again by the time all is said and done, 14-4, 13-5, or something like that. I genuinely believe 13-5 or 12-6 could possibly win you this league, depending on tiebreakers. Kentucky right now is projected to finish 19-12, 10-8 in the SEC. So that means they're going to go 4-5, according to Ken Pom, Torvik, Evan Mia, 4-5 over their final 9 games. The wins against Oklahoma, Tennessee, Georgia at home, and then South Carolina on the road. The losses at Florida, at Auburn, versus Vanderbilt, at Texas A&M, and then versus Florida. 4-5. Again, 13-5 could win or tie for first in this league. So the question here is if Kentucky wants to find a way to win the SEC, currently sitting at 6-3 in league play, can you find 3 wins out of these losses, projected losses? Can you go 7-2? Can you go, honestly, 6-3 at the very least to put yourself in position to have a double bye in the SEC tournament? So here's what I'm thinking. Can you go 13-5? Can you find 7-2? Can you get 3 wins out of at Florida, at Auburn, Vanderbilt at home, at Texas A&M, and at home against Florida? I think that realistically, Florida, honestly, at home at the end of the season is my most likely victory out of Auburn, A&M, Vandy, Florida. Or Florida twice, I should say. Out of all of those 5 games, versus Florida at the end of the year is the most likely win. And in fact, I would actually feel comfortable saying at home, Kentucky wins that game. Now, we need to see how they match up against the Gators. Who knows? Maybe they could find a way to miraculously go on the road and beat Florida. If they do that, by the way, it will be a celebration unlike anything we've seen here on Locked On Kentucky. But I think that the Florida game at the end of the year, you could possibly see as a win. I think that you could see the win or a game against Vanderbilt at home as a win. You want payback. If you're looking up, if you are Kentucky and you are looking up with 3 games left in the season on February 28th, and you're saying, okay, we have a shot to win this thing. This team embarrassed us in Nashville last time we played. You can turn things around here in Rupp Arena. I think that Kentucky has a chance to really get up for that game and show that they're capable of winning this league with a win, just by at least splitting against the Commodores there. I think you could find a win there. And then you have to find a win at Auburn, at Florida, or at Texas A&M. Auburn, extremely up and down, poor three-point shooting, great rebounding, really incredible personnel on the wing in terms of scoring. That'll be a huge problem for Kentucky, I think, personnel-wise, matchup-wise. I think they could find a way against Auburn or an A&M more likely than Florida, no duh. Texas A&M sitting at 7-1 so far in league play. I think people are trying to figure out whether or not that is actually real or if it's kind of a fluke that they are 7-1 so far. They've escaped with a couple of big wins. They also lost in overtime to Tennessee in a game that they probably should have won. And the cool thing about A&M is actually they're 7-1. They're projected to finish 12-6. They're projected to stumble down the stretch. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that Kentucky finds a way to beat Texas A&M. There's your 3. 7-2 there. If you beat Oklahoma, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, then you beat Vandy and Florida at home and go on the road and steal one against Texas A&M. I think that is enough to win you a title. And the cool thing about this is that even if they go 12-6, the cool thing about this, first of all, probably securing a double bye. Here are the other contenders that Kentucky is going to be competing against in tiebreakers and where they're projected to finish. Florida is 7-2 right now. They're supposed to go 14-4. If Kentucky splits with them, again, 13-5. Texas A&M, 7-1. 12-6 is what they're supposed to finish. Tennessee is 6-3 now. 12-6 is what they're supposed to finish. Vanderbilt is supposed to finish 11-7. Arkansas and Alabama are also supposed to finish 11-7. So even if you go 12-6 and you beat Vanderbilt and you beat Tennessee and you beat Texas A&M, which, by the way, Texas A&M at that point, if they take a loss to Kentucky, that would put them at 11-7. So Kentucky's a clean game above them if they go 12-6. So there is so much opportunity for you to at least go 6-3. Even something like 5-4 could put you in the conversation to be the second seed, possibly, in the SEC tournament, depending on how tiebreakers fall. It is going to be a very tight, chaotic race towards the end of the SEC slate. And this is, right now, such a bizarre time, because I would love to sit here and tell you, yeah, Kentucky's got a very great shot because they're playing well. They're coming off a huge win against Arkansas. They've got this going for them. They've got that going for them. I can't sit here and tell you that in confidence, knowing that this team could turn around and absolutely fall apart in their next game because of a lack of effort and because of a lack of focus. This is such an unpredictable, chaotic team. We'll just have to see. But it's on the table. It is more than on the table. What do you think? Do you think Kentucky's got a shot? Or do you think that, like one commentator has been saying for at least 2 months now, they're not even in an IT team? You can leave those thoughts in the YouTube comments below. All right, Oklahoma is not a trap game. They're just not. Kentucky, and you know what? I might be cold taking myself here pretty badly, but I don't think it's a trap game. I'm going to tell you why here in just a moment. Before we do it, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Mazda. It's a continuation of our historical segment. This spot will highlight a player, a play, a fan, a coach, a moment that defines the game or the team. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Let's go. Considering Kentucky is 15-7, 6-3. Considering they're still somehow in the race to win the SEC regular season title, let's go with Mark Pope. We'll go with Mark Pope here after his monumental win over Arkansas on the road, beating Coach Cal, evening that up, getting payback over the Hogs after what they did in Rupp Arena last season. The fact that Mark Pope has been able to manage these injuries, manage this roster, and find ways to win, albeit against some not so good competition, but wins against Tennessee and Arkansas on the road, are you kidding me? It really reminds us what it takes to raise the bar, right? It's the extra work off the court for Pope. It's dialing in on every detail. It's giving it that extra fire, that extra energy. It's that grit, and it's the I never quit, which he has continued to say over and over and over. They are not going to quit. They are not going to give up. And Mazda puts that exact same passion that Mark Pope has for Kentucky into every single model that they make. Highlights make the reel, but what it took to actually get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of the show, really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Let me know what you think again. Do you think Kentucky's going to win the SEC? Do you think they're going to come up short? Do you think they're going to not even win a single game from here on out? They're not going to make the SEC tournament, or not going to win the SEC title, win the SEC tournament, or even make the NCAA tournament like one commenter thinks? That Kentucky is an NIT team, which at this point is just like beyond wrong. It's actually laughable. Anyway, Oklahoma is not a trap game. I may be cold taking myself pretty bad here. This is a genuinely bad team. It's not a good team. And we know, we've seen it, what Kentucky does to bad teams this season. Now, you can say what you want about whether or not Kentucky is capable of competing with the elite in college basketball this season. And honestly, I think time will tell if they do make it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, whether or not that's true. Honestly, if they finish with a double bye in the SEC tournament, we're going to see if pressure makes diamonds here for Pope. And so far, it hasn't, right? You've had some embarrassing losses to Gonzaga. You've also gotten blown out by Alabama, Vanderbilt, some teams that actually matter. Louisville was almost a blowout. Michigan State was a blowout. Losing at North Carolina at home was humiliating. But when it comes to the bad teams, the middle of the pack, the average, I can only think of one game this season that Kentucky has not met the moment. And not just met the moment, but absolutely torn the team apart. Missouri, the second game of the SEC slate. And honestly, if we want to tie this back into our conversation about can Kentucky win the SEC, that Missouri game honestly may end up killing Kentucky, because if they went 6-2 or 6-3 to wrap up, which is way more manageable than 7-2, because you have to find an extra road win more than likely against a really tough opponent, Auburn, Florida A&M. If you had beaten Missouri, you would be 13-5, and it's so realistic. It's so doable. Absolutely. The only thing that's separating Kentucky from 4-5 and 6-3 is beating Vanderbilt and Florida at home. That's doable. It's Rupp. It's the end of the year. At that point, you'd be fighting for a lot. Missouri being the only exception. When Kentucky was dead in the water, it felt like at 9-6, just giving up on everything, embarrassing the way that they were playing. Outside of that, they've taken most teams that they play that are pretty bad out to the woodshed. I mean, honestly, and even against some of the like mid-tier competition in the SEC, they've still found a way to comfortably win. And to be honest with you, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Mississippi State obviously was a blowout, but LSU, Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, like all of these games, if you go back and actually watch them, if you go back and look at like the box score and the officiating, Kentucky could have beaten a lot of these opponents by a lot more. Some things out of their control that they didn't quite capitalize on, some things within their control that they just didn't look, that it's clear they can perform better at. And that's something that I've continued to say about this team is weirdly enough, I don't think we've seen this team's ceiling. I don't think we've seen the best of what Mark Pope has to offer in year 2 at Kentucky. And I think against Oklahoma later on tonight, they're going to prove that they've got more in the tank, especially against this mid-tier competition. The thing about Oklahoma that separates them from Ole Miss, from the LSUs, the Mississippi States, the Missouris of the world, is that they are just genuinely bad. Like, there is not a single redeemable quality about this team so far in SEC play. It is embarrassing what's going on in Norman, Oklahoma. Is Porter Moser here for another year? Is he here at the end of the season? I'm not sure, but what I can tell you is they are projected to win one more game for the rest of the year, and they are already 1-8 league play. They have lost, guys, 8 straight games. They're not gonna cut that streak here in Rupp Arena. They are dead last in the SEC in rim defense. They are second worst in defense in the conference. They are third worst in offense. They do not do a single statistical thing that is even good. They don't do anything well. It is bizarre. I almost screenshotted it. It took a screenshot of it and posted it on Twitter just to say, look at their KenPom page. Look at how they've played in conference play. They have not been able to do anything, NES. Yes, they've had some close calls. Close against Alabama, close against Missouri, close against Arkansas. But man, they have just consistently not been able to get over the hump. Most recently, losing at home by double digits to Texas. I mean, this is just not a good team. And they are in free fall right now. It's a tight rotation, an experienced one, but a tight rotation. And outside of Nigel Pack, I can't think of a single reason why Oklahoma's going to come into Rupp Arena and win this game. I cannot justify it. I cannot justify an upset. This is going to be, it might end up being an ugly one. But at the very least, Kentucky projected to win this game by 10. This will be a 9 to 25 point victory. It is going to be a margin that Big Blue Nation is comfortable with. I guarantee it. Kentucky has to come into this game fired up and wanting to prove themselves. Can they do it tonight in Rupp Arena? I want to see that effort. I want to see that drive. Like we were talking about with Pope, I want to see the let's not give up and not just the let's not stop fighting, but let's kick it into a second gear here. Against a team like Oklahoma that you should pummel. Frankly, you should pummel. Forget what the KenPom numbers say. Go and actually watch this team. They turn the ball over. They don't rebound. They don't shoot well. They don't protect the rim at all in SEC play. Almost 58% is what opponents are shooting. That's what Kentucky's opponents were doing to them last season when you couldn't stop air at the rim. This is a genuinely bad team. And again, we know what Kentucky has done to really bad teams this season. Talking about mid-majors, they get crushed. Kentucky's crushed them. Oklahoma right now, in terms of momentum and stats and just eye test, they're not playing like even a middle-of-the-pack to bad SEC team. This is really bad for the Sooners. Kentucky's going to win this game. Kentucky's also not out of the race for Tyran Stokes. They're not out of it yet. And that's such a weird thing, right? After this entire recruitment has kind of gone sideways with Kentucky being the favorite, then Kansas being the favorite, and now it's kind of evening out. At least it reads that way, according to insiders. Let's talk about it a little bit more, explain what's going on, how I feel about it in just a moment. Before we do it, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone that's willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person just stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you actually match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone that can help or just someone that's ready to help. I want someone with real experience that can jump right in and actually make an immediate impact at my company. And that's what I really like about Indeed. You can get really specific and target exactly what you need, and it saves time because you're spending less energy and less effort sorting through mismatches. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, you can spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job to the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, I would love it if you did so. Guys, you already make Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day, and I really appreciate that. You can take it up a notch if you would like with the Everydayers Club. Join Locked On Kentucky every day with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can go to lockedonkentucky.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Kentucky's not out of the race for Tyran Stokes. At least that's what Kentucky thinks. With the way that they have been acting, despite the online conversation, the conversation on this show, the reporting from On3, Rivals, 24/7, the big guys there, the recruiting analysts that know what's going on, that have now taken away some of their crystal balls, their projections for Kentucky to land Stokes. This was supposed to be done in November. And here we are now in February. And signs point to Stokes going to Kansas. Now, I have continued to sit here and say it's not over. It's not over till the fat lady sings. And right now, I am questioning the future of the Kansas basketball program with Bill Self's health clearly in question. I'm questioning whether or not Stokes, considering he has said it's not about the NIL money, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. He said that and made it very clear he's not making his next college decision based on who can pay him the most money. Kentucky's not out of the race. And according to Rivals, who just recently put out an article calling their shot on where these top candidates in the 2026 class are going to land, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Jamie Shaw who put this out over on Rivals. I might be mistaken on that. But he said that obviously, initially in the process, it was Kentucky. It was Kentucky leading the way. And then things faded, and then Kansas got involved. The major players around this race kind of shifted. I believe Vanderbilt and Washington got involved. But at the end of it, Shaw and Rivals said that everything, right now, based on the things that he's hearing, he would lean Kansas. So we're not getting any sort of hard set information of, he's going to commit to the Jayhawks in 2 weeks. Things are really ramping up with Kansas. It looks like it might be close to a done deal. And when he gave his confidence level on how confident he is in Tyron Stokes committing to the Jayhawks, he said 50% confidence. A clean 50% from the lead analyst at one of the biggest recruiting analyst companies in the country says he's 50-50. Right now on whether or not Tyron Stokes is going to commit to Kansas. Kentucky is not out of this. And I will continue to say, I know the personality and the emotional problems that might come with somebody like Stokes. I think that if you can get him, you get him. You can field a very, very good team next season and surround Stokes with talent, especially some players on this roster that would gel well with him and be a title contender in 2026, 2027. Just because prima donna, overly emotional, immature. Do you know how many college stars that have come and gone that fit that criteria, that have still made their team elite, that have made their team special? I'm willing to see if Mark Pope can handle what Tyron Stokes brings to the table. By the way, it's not like I'm saying the kid is a bad person. I'm just saying this is what's been reported. I'm telling you what's been reported about him and his problems, because as far as on the court goes, he's unstoppable. He scored 63 points on his senior night. Are you kidding me? He cannot be denied from scoring at the rim. The jump shot is coming along nicely. He can play defense. He can handle the ball. He can get out in transition at an incredible size for his position. This is a special offensive player, at least. He's worth the money. He's worth getting him to come to college and develop in more ways than one. I think that a clean 50-50 confidence in him going to Kansas over the field, Kentucky's not out of this, guys. Kentucky is still very much so in this. Jason Hart going to his senior night to watch him play. Kentucky's still going to him. They're still talking to him. They're still in community. It's not like Stokes said no and he's cut contact or even named Kentucky the leader at any point. It has ebbed and flowed, and sure, he may end up going to Kansas. He may end up going to Lawrence. But as of this moment, there's nothing telling me that Kentucky can't land him. It is still on the table. It's not a definitive. It's not over. That's going to do it for today's episode of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Locked On Kentucky. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Kentucky so you get all of the latest episodes. If you need a gift or someone keeps asking you, hey, I want a gift. I want to get more Locked On. I want more information about Kentucky. You can make it easy. You can ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of the show. Exclusive Discord access with over 1,200 members, by the way, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through LockedOnKentucky.supercast.com. For those of you on video here on YouTube, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel on audio. Make sure to make your second listen of the day Locked On College Basketball with Andy Patton and Isaac Shea. You can follow this show on Twitter at Locked On UK. We are very active over there. You can follow the show over on Instagram at Kentucky Podcast and myself on Twitter at Lance Dawe _. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all later tonight for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And God bless. And go Cats.